Hello, BookTube. I was searching around for some tags because I do so many bookshelf tours. Trying to break it up a bit, um, and I came across a really fascinating tag. It's called the History Trail tag. It's by the novel Nomad. Wonderful questions. So I thought I'd give it a try. Um, and it's a series of, let's see, 6, 7, 8 questions. The last one's tagging fellow history nerds, and there's no shortage of them on BookTube, so that'll be the easiest part. So the first question, excuse me, is first steps. So I guess the theme is to go along the trail. What book, movie, person, place introduce you to history and historical fiction? And I thought about this. It's not easy to answer. When I was a young boy, on Saturdays, we would watch cartoons in the morning, which most of you know about. And then we would watch Tarzan. I'm too young for it to have been Johnny Weissmuller. And then in the afternoon, you'd have a movie. And an awful lot of those movies, when I was young, we only got 3 channels, and you could only really make out one. Were Errol Flynn movies. And it's a swashbuckling, romantic adventure movies. And I think that had a big impact on me. I haven't seen one in years. I've read a lot of historical fiction since then, but I didn't read those. I watched them in movies. And the swashbuckling aspect when you're a young person was important. The excitement, the adventure, the different background, the different setting. And you build up a taste for those. And I think that's that different background, the different human beings are human beings, but that different background, that different setting that influences you and affects your story is what I loved about them. So if anybody remembers Errol Flynn. So the next question is, and it's still on that trail theme, the Well-Trodden Path. What is your favorite historical recommendation? Book, place, movie? I'd throw a TV show in there. I was a huge fan of the Rat Patrol, World War II, Jeeps. Anybody remembers that? But place, every place has history if you're willing to look for it. And books. There's just so many. I'm trying to think, what would be my favorite? I mean, I liked Wolf Hall, which is common on BookTube. I think Hilary Mantel's brilliant. But because of where I grew up, and we like a connection with where we grew up, the first is Bernard Cornwell, which a lot of people on BookTube know about him. I'm not sure they talk about this book much. And this is, I've lived probably half my life in Maine, half in Vermont. I'm born in Vermont and from a very, very old Vermont family. But I lived as much of my life in Maine. And then, so you have 2 halves, and because I'm a humanities major, I'm going to throw in Florida. I don't know how to add. Bernard Cornwell, he did. He's done a lot of things, and a lot of folks know about his Anglo-Saxon Chronicle type stuff, his Arthurian stuff. His sharp novels are unequaled. I mean, I would put them in the category Patrick O'Brian, and I don't know if anybody would agree with me. Folio Society, sharp novels. This is very different for him. And he lives in Massachusetts. He came to the States. He's a British novelist, so here, I'll just read a little bit so you can get an idea. So this is from my neck of the woods. While the major fighting of the war moves to the south in the summer of 1779, a British force of fewer than 1,000 Scottish infantry, backed by 3 sloops of war, sails to the desolate and fog-bound coast of New England, establishing a garrison and naval base at Penobscot Bay, which is where I spent half my life, in the eastern province of Massachusetts that would become Maine. The Scots, the only British troops between Canada and New York, harry rebel privateers and give shelter to American loyalists. And I'm not read it. It's one of his. I mean, he's had so many great books, and I have shelves of them, and on bookshelf tours we'll go through them. This is a good book, very good book. So, what is your good boots? So it's not on trail theme. Very nice. What is your favorite historical fashion era? Fashion. I like to think I don't care about fashion, but it's not true. We all care about fashion. I mean, I just talked about a swashbuckler. I'd like to have the big sash and the sword, all the adventure. But I think of the British soldier, the Great Game, the Brits, their military, their navy, the navy primarily, but of course the militaries were wonderful. Just striding across the planet like they owned the place, which they did. So I think it's that era when they have 100 conflicts going on, and yet with small pockets of human beings they're able to manage it. I don't understand it. I don't think in the history of the planet it's ever been done before or since. It's an odd phenomenon. So for that, those are the Flashman novels. They are incredibly politically incorrect. They are incredibly hilarious. Well, just look at the cover. These are actually quite beautiful editions. You won't find these around most places anymore, but you'd have to hunt them down. This is George MacDonald Fraser. Flashman was based on. Well, here. Look, this is an end paper on this one. I should show you the one on the other one, if they have one. I reckon they don't. But they have this. Maybe they'll say a little bit. This one, Flashman is about the most irreverent, incompetent, hilarious representative of empire ever. And George MacDonald Fraser was one of the great tongue-in-cheek pre-Monty Python fellows that ever lived. When you meet people who know who he is, they know who he is. They love him. They're not politically correct in the sense that they say things that are disturbing. But you have to understand that the author intended that. It's a send up of empire. It's not a glorification. And he was absolutely a wonderful writer. And I laugh. And they're just great. So that was George MacDonald Fraser. I could go on all day. Close to home. What is a historical read set? A historical read set in your home country? Boy, that was awkward to say. And this is a fella, unlike George MacDonald Fraser or Bernard Cornwell, who are both heavily read. This, I believe, is America's greatest historical novelist. I'm not sure anybody on the planet agrees with me. Oh, David McCullough. Well, maybe. And this is Kenneth Roberts. He is particularly effective in in colonial and then early American historical novels. And he's written some books that are just monumental. Arundel is the story of Benedict Arnold's march to Quebec. That is brilliant. I don't know why the Library of America hasn't picked him up and put him into permanent, forever immortality. I'd recommend that anybody who loves historical fiction pick him up. He's written books like Oliver Wiswell, which is an American Revolutionary story, but told by a loyalist. So you folks in Nova Scotia will probably like that. Your ancestors were from there. Lydia Bailey. Northwest Passage, which is about Major Robert Rogers. I think Spencer Tracy was in that movie. I probably should have looked that up before I did this. There was a movie. Arundel, which we just spoke about. Lively Ladies, which is the story of a maiden privateer and a captain at sea and in Dartmoor Prison. We know about famous literary figures in Dartmoor Prison. Captain Caution, which is about 1812. Rabble in Arms, which is the sequel to Arundel, which is about the American North Army attempt to halt the British invasion. Boone Island, wonderful story. It's the story of a struggle for the existence by the men of the Nottingham Galley after it went to pieces off the Maine coast. And then he wrote a non-fiction piece, the brilliantly written account, according to this, of decisive revolutionary battle. Maybe a little overstated. His March to Quebec, which is he edited of accounts of Benedict Arnold's march to Quebec through Maine. Brilliant. Brilliant. So, yeah. I don't know if you can find him. Maybe you can. But, Kenneth Roberts. So, the trail not taken, continuing the theme. What historical eras do you avoid? I did avoid Regency stuff until I had an odd encounter at my library with some folks who I really respect. And then, to reinforce it, listen to Steve Donahue speak about it. It was the Regency period, the Regency romance. I'm not a romance guy. And I ran into Georgette Heyer's historical stuff. Very early, I'm at the early stages of this. It's going to take some more work to really understand what she's doing, but This first one, I got it right here. I'm reading it right now. It's falling apart. Civil contract is. I wish I could write like that. Trail map. What historical reads are on your TBR? Well, let's walk over. Let's take a look. I do a lot of historical reads, so this one was sent to me. By Mr. Steve Donahue. And that's a Louis L'Amour. We have more Louis L'Amour. I know I'm making you all seasick. It's all buried behind these. So that's my TBR for historical. Pioneers. What historical person inspires you? I think historical people, like all of us, are flawed. So I'm not sure inspired would be the way I would want to. Maybe it just limits what I want to answer. I'm inspired by the Venerable Bede. I'm inspired by I don't know, but interested in is separate. It's different. I can take their flaws. I can accept their flaws. There probably was a time when I was younger when I would have been inspired by Winston Churchill. Because I was alive before he died. So I can be inspired. But history is a very critical apparatus itself. And some parts of his character are problematic. Some parts of my character are problematic. So I would hope I would not be too harsh. But if I thought of a historical person in my lifetime, mostly prior to it, but somewhat in my lifetime, I would give it to Winston Churchill. And he was, yeah, it's luck, but it's also preparation. It's character. It's all these things go into the mix. There may have been as many wonderful people throughout history, and I'm sure there were, and as many with bad traits. But it's timing. It's timing. It's where are you? What happens when you're there? And how's it go? What did you do? What side were you on? I mean, there's probably 100 things about Churchill that were very unlikable. And yet he was on the right side. He made the right choices at the times he had to make. He made bad choices many times in life, as have I. But when he made the ones that mattered, that were critical, I really find him fascinating. And so I would say Winston Churchill. So that was question 7. That was pioneers. Question 8. Tag your fellow history nerds. So I don't know who's done this tag, but I would tag Steve Donahue. I would tag Ernest Lee Eston. And thank you, BookTube.